First story. I will never know exactly what happened, but I know enough. I'm absolutely heartbroken. Where to begin? My significant other and I were in a relationship for just over 2 years. We met in a period of my life where for the first time ever I was learning to love myself. I have always struggled immensely with my self-worth. I had recently lost my best friend to drug addiction, the grief of which nearly broke me, led me to therapy, and ultimately came out the other side stronger and ready to give myself the love I needed without any need to qualify that with a relationship. I met her when I wasn't looking for love, and it just happened because we had clicked so much, had so many congruent values, and it was just incredible. I'd never felt so close to someone. The sex was unbelievable, so intimate, open, and loving. And we did not have a single argument for the first year of our relationship. Not one. It wasn't keeping the peace. We just genuinely communicated and respected each other so much that there was never an issue that had got to that point. We began talking about this beautiful life we would build together. We bonded over the most amazing and special memories. I had never felt so in love, so loved. It was perfect. Obviously, our first argument was bound to happen, and after the first one, more followed. Things weren't as good, and shortly after this began, she had began hanging out with a new friend group, who she was suddenly spending all of her time with. Around this time the intimacy began to fade in our relationship. She was less interested in spending time with me. She began to become resentful toward me and told me she was suffering with depression. I was there for her, I always had been. I sat with her and listened and consoled and tried to do everything in my power to help her through. I never put any pressure on her to be intimate with me. Certain things began happening that had raised alarm bells in my head about the prospects of her cheating. One of the two people in this new friend group she was hanging out with a lot and getting super close with was a guy who I could tell had feelings for her. I should have shut it down, but I trusted her. I never thought even for a second that she could really do that to me. Even when things got hard, she loved me, you know. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt and trust her. And that as long as I gave her my trust and my love she would stay and never hurt me like that. She began spending even more time with this friend group. Every night she would be around one of their houses, usually around his, but with the group. She'd be there until at least 3 in the morning most nights, usually much later. Oftentimes she wouldn't come back until the next morning. We were both in the final year of our degree at the time, and she always told me she was so busy that she had to spend all evening around there working with them, because they were all on the same course, to get things done. Again, I trusted her. I wanted to give her the space and time to enjoy her new friends without being overbearing, and to do the work she needed to do. I thought she would respect that trust I had offered. She began experimenting with hard drugs MDMA. I was a few years older than her and had had my fair share of experiences. I had been clean for years and didn't want anything to do with it. I had lost my best friend to drug addiction and I knew how it could change people. I didn't think she should be doing it when she was so depressed. I voiced my concerns, how concerned it made me when I knew she was doing it. She made plans to do it with him. I immediately felt sick. I knew how it worked. I'd seen it act as the catalyst that had made people fall in love with one another. I voiced my concerns. She assured me that would never happen and that she was not remotely attracted to him. She told me how she felt she wanted to experiment with it the same way I had. I understood, and didn't want her to resent me for it. I couldn't change how I felt. But the decision was ultimately hers. I gave her the freedom. But it did make me sick to my stomach at the idea of losing her to it, or to him, because of the experiences they might have together. She would go out with them, with him, do it, and I would have to deal with the come down. I'd be the emotional punch bag, the one that held her through all the anguish that would come the next day. Clearly, she would begin to associate me with that pain. My birthday is on Christmas Eve. It's always depressing. I usually work it and no one ever makes an effort to spend it with me. I had become used to it and didn't really celebrate it, but this particular year something happened that made it much less bearable. My Christmas was depressing too. It was all awful. And I hadn't spent any of it with her because she had had to go home to spend time with her family. Obviously, understandably, and I'd encouraged it, but I had wanted to spend New Year's with her, and we had agreed to. She recommended this event that her friends and her had agreed to go to together. I said, great, let's get tickets. She said she didn't have any money. She always did. I said, okay, let me know when you do, and we'll get them together to make sure we can both go. She didn't. She bought her ticket a few days later without telling me, and only told me after they had sold out. She knew what a hard time I had had and how much I needed it, and she still asked me if I would mind if she just go with them instead. Her excuse was that it was their last year at uni together and probably the last chance they'd all get to spend New Year's together. I was hurt. It led to a huge argument. I did suspect they may be cheating at this point, but again, things settled down and I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. I did manage to get a ticket in the end and join for the evening. She didn't see her friend group at all. She always seemed to avoid the possibility of us spending any extended time together. When I did bump into them in town, usually just the two of them, it always felt tense and awkward. I assumed just because they thought that I thought they might be cheating. After a while, she openly admitted that she had been avoiding me, spending as much time out of the house as possible because she didn't know how to talk to me. Now it is very clear why. I had been grieving the loss of that perfect relationship we had had, but she made me feel as though I was the problem. I felt like she had fallen out of love with me, that I wasn't exciting to her anymore. But we continued to try hard for a long time, or at least I did, and she made me believe that she was. She had become cold, unempathetic. Anytime she looked at me, it was with resentment. She would do hurtful and selfish things and then blame me for it. She would cry and I would support her despite it all, because I loved her. She would be jealous and controlling, and then she would love-bomb me to keep me invested when I felt like all hope was lost. Eventually, we came to the decision to end the relationship. It was heartbreaking, because neither of us wanted to. That's what it felt like, at least, and we were living together, out of necessity. We were both 2 months from our final degree hand-in and starting new jobs, and it just wasn't feasible to move. We took it in turns to sleep on the sofa a week at a time, but it was difficult. Despite being extremely sad for the first few weeks, and falling into a minor depression not long after, we stayed amicable. We slowly came to the realization that we did love and respect each other, and it had just not been working. I told her how much love and respect and gratitude I had had for her and the story we had shared, and everything she had taught me about love, and that I wouldn't change a bit of it. She agreed. Though we were spending most of our time apart to try and heal, the times we did pass at home we would chat and hug and support each other. I had grieved the relationship. I knew it was over, but I valued what we had had. All this time I didn't even have in my mind the suspicions that had come up previously. They were just that, suspicions, and I hadn't thought much more of them. We were in a good place. I finally started to move on. I was in the best place I had been since the start of our relationship, physically and mentally. I was exercising daily, journaling, I was optimistic about the future, and I was making big plans and taking the steps I needed to make them happen. I had no interest in dating someone else. I wanted to focus on me, and I felt like out of respect for her it would be fair to wait until we were no longer living together. I still missed her, but I had moved on and things honestly couldn't have been going better. That's when it happened. Out of the blue, she brings someone back to the house. She was quiet about it, but I was in. She would regularly check my calendar to see when I was and wasn't in, even after we broke up. And I wasn't supposed to be in that night, as I had an event which I had decided not to go to. She could obviously tell I was in and had brought him back silently to her room. She never came in without saying hello before. I could tell something was up. Basically, it became very clear that she was hiding a man in our room, whilst I was there. At first I thought I might be overthinking it, but I eventually plucked up the courage to confront her on it. Long story short, I made her kick him out and called her out on it. She confirmed it was what I thought it was, but said she wasn't going to sleep with him. They were undressed in bed together though. She admitted it was wrong. I was so hurt, but when I found out who it was, that's when everything began to become obvious. It was the guy. Over the course of the next few days, my brain began to disintegrate into mush, going through all the scenarios in my head of how it all could have happened. All the things I didn't know, all the suspicions I had had, all the things I had never noticed before but now became as clear as day. A few months earlier I had found her in our bed wearing his jumper. This should have been the final clue, but she rationalized, gaslit me, and somehow I trusted her. We had several arguments. She admitted that she had been emotionally cheating for the last month of our relationship, but denied anything else had happened. I wanted to believe her, but all the information I had was pointing in the opposite direction. So many other clues suddenly started coming to mind. I couldn't believe she could do this to me, the person I knew, the person I loved, and that she could spring it on me in such a hurtful way. After I had already grieved everything and had had so much love and respect for her, I was in a good place, and she slipped at the last hurdle and stole it all from me. In trying to consolidate all this new information in my brain, and ruminating on it constantly for 3 days straight, my brain turned to mush and I had a mini emotional breakdown. I was very fortunate that I had some friends who had supported me, and I'm very grateful they had been there for me, as I'm not sure how I would have made it through this all without them. I stayed with some of them, and the company and distraction did me wonders. If you are going through something like this, please reach out to someone you know would be willing to help, even if you're not that close. It is so crucial that you have people with you through this time. I can't stress that enough, or it will break you. After the fact, I realized it has been even worse than I had thought. I realized that she has been working on her final degree project with him at his house all this time. A project based on a story that romanticized infidelity. I had gone to her graduation show and seen the work and gave her a big hug and told her how proud I was of it. After we broke up, but we were still very close, and she looked shocked at the time. I didn't really know why. Now I understand. How could she do something so cold? Part of that project had hung on our wall in our living room for the past few months. I realized she had romanticized the whole thing, and I think she almost enjoyed the risk of getting caught. She had always been interested in exhibition, if you know what I mean, so it would align. Suddenly all doubts in my mind that she might have been conflicted about all began to subside. Even after it all came out, she hadn't shown much remorse. She had apologized and said she was stupid, but not cruel or hurtful. I think she was just upset with herself for being so close to getting away with it and messing up at the last minute. At this point, I was just completely floored at how she could have done such cruel and hurtful things to me when I had never done anything to hurt her, and I had always treated her so well. I was flawed, I made mistakes, but I was always open and apologetic, and ready to work on things when I knew I had, but I had never wronged her. It just didn't make any sense in my mind. It still doesn't. Even now I'm so torn between the person I thought I knew, and the person I have now come to see. I feel embarrassed and shamed that I let it go on for so long. I doubt myself every day and wonder if I've jumped to all the wrong conclusions. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and understand and empathize with her even despite it all. Even though just that which she has admitted is already so wrong. And I just feel like the earth has disintegrated beneath my feet and the air is no longer breathable. She was the one solid thing in my life I knew I could always count on. Even if things weren't perfect, I knew I could trust her. At least I thought I could. And she betrayed that trust in ways I just cannot comprehend. It has left me in a complete and utter tailspin. And whilst I am starting to come to terms with everything, and the fact that I will never know the full extent of what happened. I know enough to know that she is not the person I thought she was, and that I am better off without her. But fucking hell, this is one of if not the worst experiences of my life. It is up there with when my best friend died out of the blue from a drug overdose. I feel completely and utterly broken, like my life has been stolen from me from a stranger who somehow still gets to have a piece of my heart, despite how much they've wronged me. It all feels so wrong and so unfair. Second story. Comparing passion levels towards me and AP. I, 48M, discovered my wayward wife, 45F, 1.5-year-long AP, one drunk ONS that started everything and 3 further hookups, but lots of text messages. I also believed that her periods of physical sickness prevented more hookups. Last summer during our holidays, we have been together for 22 years and married for 17. We have 2 kids, 13 and 10. For context, this was day 3. My wife had a 6-month CA 15 years ago, and a sexting incident to another guy around the same time. Both of these were swept under the rug and left me in a constant state of anxiety, which my wife considered jealousy and paranoia, until now. We are in MC and IC since my discovery of the PA, and she is now understanding and recognizing how these events affected me and us. As far as I can tell, there was no trickle truth once I confronted her. She is dealing with a lot of shame and guilt. She was having periods of long-term sickness during the PA, requiring several surgeries, and I went at length to care for her, taking leave from work and spending vast amounts of our savings in treatments. It was a time that pushed me to my physical and mental limits like nothing before, with the exception of my mental state after discovering the PA. Now to the subject of this post. I feel more affected by the emotional passion my wife displayed towards AP than the physical intimacy they shared. Our bedroom has been dead for many years, but with the AP my wife was on fire. Texts about how she missed his hands and mouth, how it has been too long without having you, her sadness of not being able to meet more, or telling him how hot he is are hard on me. My wife hasn't displayed that level of passion for me in over a decade. Physically I believe to be more handsome than AP. I know it's vain, but I clutch to it. To make things worse, I have deteriorated quite a bit due to the affair, leaving me in a state without the discipline to work out, resulting in the noticeable loss of muscle mass and weight gain. I don't like what I see in the mirror. I feel as if I have aged 10 years within a year's time. My wife explained to me that this passion was fueled by novelty and the validation she received in return, and that it is hard for her to feel passion towards me when I am in a state of depression, due to the shame and guilt it triggers in her. Okay, I can understand this, but it doesn't make me feel any better. It feels like there is a part of her that only existed for her AP, but not for us, and it makes me feel that our relationship is lacking it. And it makes me feel that our relationship is incomplete. Part of me is jealous of what they had, in this specific aspect. Part of me wants to be desired and pursued by someone in the way my wife pursued her AP. Anyone else dealing with? And if so, what did you do? Thank you for listening. At the time of my discovery, my wife had already broken up the affair, due to no longer being able to cope with the kind of person she was in the affair. Update. WW tired of arguments. It's been a year since day number 4, emotional affair and sexting. She wants to rug sweep. Chatting behind my back with AP again, discovered in the fallout of discovering physical affair. I am better now than 12 months ago, but I am not good. My WW pulls away when I get triggered, does not even look at me, and that at times leads me to spiraling into a fit of rage and despair. I explain to her that I need her help to calm me down in these moments, to stop me in my tracks. A hug, an apology, I love you. But instead I get the cold shoulder. She pulls away and I lose it. I never insult her or call her names, but I revel in the details of what she did and throw it in her face. Last night I got triggered and I told her that I felt depressed. I was calm. When she asked what was on my mind, I said you won't like it. She strongly dislikes me citing details of her affair, and she answered that in this case she prefers not to talk about it. When I explained that I was disappointed by her reaction, her lack of support, she told me that I should consider changing the way I approach her, chose my words better, and that I should choose better fitting times for these conversations as it was late and she had to go into the office tomorrow. I replied that it wasn't like I could schedule when I get triggered. Then she proceeded to tell me how tired she is of this situation, the arguments until late night, and that I don't know how she feels. She eventually wanted to talk about my trigger, but I no longer wanted to. It feels she does it out of obligation, not because she really wants to help me overcome this. I feel alone. I feel that her priority is to be fit for work, to move on, that she prefers not to talk to avoid the pain it will bring. Supposedly I am the most important thing in her life, but she escapes the opportunities to help me heal in these moments. I don't know if I can do this much longer. Having my WW around is hard, so many triggers, and I start feeling that if she doesn't is there for me when I need her the most, then why being around her at all? Why should I keep trying and suffer? I feel very sad about this. I feel we are coming to an end, that I can't muster the strength required anymore and needed to get this out of my system. Thank you for listening. Third story. Need help knowing if she's cheating or I'm overthinking it? So to put in context, this is all true information, and just honestly need different opinions on as to if my GF is cheating or having sneaky links. So we've been dating for about 5 years on and off as I'm 23 now. In this past year or so we've decided to break up, but we still see each other regularly, and treat it as if we're still dating. Toxic teenager stuff, I know. We still go for dinners and chill whenever we can during the week. She always still lets me open her phone and tells me I can go through it, but she knows I never do personally. I've noticed a lot of different stuff recently, such as her shaving her private area, even when we're not doing stuff. And when I ask her why she does it, she says it's to be clean. Something I found strange was one week we chilled, and she wasn't shaved, but randomly in the week I noticed she was completely shaved without bringing it up. She didn't think we were gonna do sexual stuff, but I slipped my hand down there and called her out on it. She continued to joke with me, and said she had a date, and that she's going to have sex. I don't know why, but I kept asking her and she kept saying the same thing while jerking me off. But then she randomly noticed maybe she thought I was getting mad, so she said obviously it's a joke, I did that to be clean. I continued to ask her if what she said was true, but she got mad and said stop asking, it was a joke. Fast forward to a week or 2 weeks later. One night she told me she's gonna go shave her legs and arms etc., but not her private area, vagina. The next day we chill somehow randomly unplanned, and she says she wants to hang out for 30 minutes and go home. So I said okay, this is after she's been out for 5 hours with her family girl relative. And she didn't send any photos of her eating, nothing, also was not active on any social media. Except for when she sent me like 2 or 3 messages, so when I met up with her at the end of the night, she made it clear she did not want to do anything sexual and just wanted to talk and chill. But long story short, we start cuddling and I just slipped my hand in while making out and come to notice that her vagina was shaved again freshly. I asked her why she did it again when she said she wasn't going to, and she said I told you I was going to shave, I left it alone so we don't fight. But I literally have the message where she said she wasn't going to shave down there and only her body, lol. So now I'm confused, cause right after I slipped my hand in completely and she was wet and her panty felt kind of wet as well. We had only kissed barely. So I asked her how she's wet already, and why the panties are wet. She responded by saying it's because of me, but I know that's BS, cause how could she be wet when she didn't want to do anything in the first place? And I never did anything to make her wet. Am I clearly overthinking this whole thing, or is she really having sneaky links? I just want to hear different opinions, thank you. Fourth story. Am I that bad for ghosting my wife after she cheated on me with my neighbor cause I have a problem? I'm 26-year-old man and my wife is 25. I have been married to her for a year after dating her for 3 years. My wife is a fitness freak with high libido. So for a bit of background, I was diagnosed with premature ejaculation 3 months ago. My doctor said it is because of my chain smoking habit and excessive drinking. I can try use the meds to boost my performance, but it isn't healthy, and I should instead try wait and quit smoking and drinking, and if I get back to the way I was before. So I started slowing down, and now I just smoke a few cigs and a couple shots, not more than that. Anyway, 2 days ago I came back home early cause I wasn't feeling well. I had caught cold a few days ago, and I felt so bad, so I told my boss I want to leave. He agreed, and when I came back home I unlocked my home and saw my wife having sex in my living room on the couch. I was so shocked that I couldn't say anything, I just stood there. My neighbor rushed outside and my wife tried to apologize crying. But I couldn't make sense of any of this and just left, and now I'm living with my friend. I have been getting so many texts from her, but I didn't bother to reply at all. Today my mother called me and said I should at least talk to my wife. She said my wife only did it cause I was having a problem, and it only happened a few times, and she knew about it. I told her I don't want to talk to her and cut contact with her as well. My dad is on my side and my friend is a lawyer, and when I told him everything he asked me about my financials, I told him I bought everything under my father's name cause he's a senior, and in my country for seniors loan rates are lower, so I bought my house, my car, literally everything under his name. So my friend, that was a very good decision. But laws in my country favor women, and I don't even have proof of her cheating, so at best I'll have to pay alimony. But my mother keeps saying at least talk to my wife. Just talk, just listen, don't do anything, just listen to her. I have always been close to my mother and have been her favorite child. She thinks of my wife as a daughter she never had, and wouldn't want to lose her. I asked her if we divorce will she support my wife. She said she will and include her in her will as well. I'm so hurt about this. I have been drinking so much, it has become like if I'm awake, I'm drunk. So I ask you guys, should I talk to my wife? Am I wrong if I don't listen to her, be it call or meeting her? Fifth story. Am I that bad for exposing my cheating girlfriend at her birthday party? I, 27M, have been with my girlfriend, Sarah, 26F, for 3 years. All these time I thought things were going great between us. We had already talked about moving in together and making our relationship formal, an engagement and wedding, all that was planned. However, a few months ago, she started to have some weird characters unlike hers, like coming home late and drunk, being secretive with her phone, and making excuses to avoid spending time together. For like a week I tried to study and get to know where all this were coming from, and to make it worse, I started to think I was the problem why she is behaving like that. With time my gut feeling kept nagging me, so I decided to do some investigating just to seek the truth. One night while she was drunk asleep I went through her phone and I checked her chats with her best friend, because there is where all the secrets are. I was shocked to find out that she was having an affair with one of my boys. I confronted her about it and she denied everything, even when I showed her the messages. She said they were just joking around and that I was being paranoid. I didn't buy it, but I didn't push further. So last week was her birthday party. Everyone was invited, including my boy, LOL. I said to myself I could keep hurting and pretending I'm okay. So after the eating and dancing it was time to talk. I decided to talk last as I wanted to hear how everybody praised our relationship, then prove them wrong. When it was my turn I talked about trust and loyalty, and then I dropped the bombshell. I let everyone know that she was cheating, and even sent the messages to her birthday group so everyone could see. Everyone was shocked while she felt embarrassed and ran out crying. Her family and friends came at me for humiliating her on her precious day. I left shortly after, feeling a mix of anger and relief. Now my phone keeps getting notifications from her friends calling me all sort of names. But I feel like she deserved it for betraying my trust. So, am I that bad for exposing my cheating girlfriend at her birthday party?